For a few months now, I've been using the Honor Magic4 Pro as my primary device and I've been absolutely loving it. So when the Magic5 Pro got announced, I was very much curious to see how it would compare. Now the new flagship smartphone can be found for roughly £950, at least in the UK and at the time of filming, while its predecessor can be found for roughly £650. So in this video, we'll be comparing both smartphones and to see if they're actually worth their price tag. Now before proceeding on with this review, I would like to thank AOC, the monitor manufacturer, for actually sponsoring it. More on them further down in this video. So to kick off this video, I would like to talk about the design of both of these smartphones. And here you can see that the Honor Magic5 Pro has certainly improved. While I do appreciate a glass back of the Honor Magic4 Pro, it does mean that it attracts a lot of fingerprints, which can be quite annoying. Furthermore, it's a lot more slippery to hold if you're not going to be using it with a case. The Magic5 Pro, on the other hand, has got a bit more of a textured finish, and therefore makes it so much easier to hold, and means that I don't actually have to rely on using a case. On the flip side, however, you can see that the camera hump is a lot more pronounced, and while this does certainly look aesthetically pleasing, if you were to place both smartphones down on a table, you'll find that the Honor Magic5 Pro seems to be propped up a little bit more. Nonetheless, this might be a non-issue for certain individuals, specifically if you're pairing it up with a case, but it's just something I thought I should highlight. In terms of the feel of both phones, they feel very premium. The metal finish that goes around the side makes it feel all good, and in terms of the weight of them, well, it'll be on your screen right now, including the dimensions. Both phones are IP68 dust and water resistant, meaning that you can submerge them for up to 30 minutes at a depth of 1.5 meters. And in terms of the button configuration, both of them have got power and volume rockers on the right hand side, an IR blaster at the top with a speaker, which is always very useful. And at the bottom, you've also got another speaker with a USB Type-C input. And then you've also got the nano SIM tray. Now, past the aesthetics, both smartphones sport an absolutely spectacular 6.81-inch 120Hz LTPO OLED display, which looks absolutely incredible. It also has got a curvature on either side, which I actually much prefer because it means that actually handling the smartphone or indeed using it is far more intuitive in comparison to a bit more of a blocky look. But of course that is somewhat subjective. Now both smartphones also have got HDR10+ support and also have got a 460 ppi, meaning every sort of content that you'll be consuming will look very sharp. You can of course adjust the resolution through the display settings on the smartphones. Now past this, both smartphones get very bright, and readability under bright sunlit conditions is a non-issue. It is worth considering that the manufacturer claims that you'll get up to 1800 nits, although I do think that is with HDR, and therefore when I was consuming SDR content, I noted a peak of 766 nits. With the automatic brightness enabled, I also noted a peak of 1258 nits. Nonetheless, this will certainly suffice for most individuals, and yet again I had no sort of issues consuming content. Speaking of which, if you can use your smartphone at night, you'll be pleased to know that both use PWM dimming technology. 1920Hz on the Magic4 Pro, while the newer Magic5 Pro ups it to 2160Hz. It also gets TÜV certification. Therefore, it means that you're going to reduce any sort of eye fatigue or eye strain, and in my case, I had no issues whatsoever while using these smartphones. It's great to know that the technology is there in the background, and while you compare it to some of the alternatives out there on the market, it means that you should be more comfortable using the smartphones towards the latter portions of the day. Now past these stunning displays, let's look at what's planted at the back of both smartphones, and by that I mean the camera configuration. Here you have got a triple camera array on both, but they do vary a little bit. Now the Honor Magic5 Pro has got a 50 megapixel f1.6 wide, a 50 megapixel f3.0 periscope telephoto lens capable of 3.5 times optical zoom and up to 100 times digital zoom. You've then got a 50 megapixel f2.0 ultra wide and also a ToF 3D depth sensor. Now as for the Magic4 Pro, it's got a 50 megapixel f1.8 wide, a 64 megapixel f3.5 periscope telephoto lens with 3.5 times optical zoom and 100 times digital zoom, and a 50 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide. It also has got that ToF 3D depth sensor. Indeed, the biggest differences between the two over here is when it comes to the f-stop. Now, when it came to comparing both of these smartphones, the overall camera quality was absolutely excellent on both, and indeed will go toe-to-toe with some of the flagship offerings from rival manufacturers. However, when we're concentrating on both of these two, the Magic 5 Pro looks a little bit warmer in terms of the overall tones it gives, be it in terms of using the regular lens, ultra-wide, or of course looking at the 3.5 or 10 times zoom, although the differences became a little less apparent when it came to zooming in. As for more close-up shots, you can yet again see over here that the little buds over here on the left on the Magic 5 Pro look a lot more warmer in comparison to the cooler tones that were portrayed on the Magic 4 Pro. Similarly here, when I was looking at the Ciatmo 125, which I was reviewing for Totally EV, and in case you're interested of that review, by the way, check it up on your pop banner or down in the description below, you can see here that the contrast of the bike in comparison to the wall, or indeed while looking at the tail lights on the Magic 5 Pro, looks a little bit more in comparison to the Magic 4 Pro. Now, when it comes to looking at more of the zoom level, specifically going into digital zoom, you can see over here that both of them are actually pretty good when it comes to comparing it at, let's say, 3.5 to 10 times zoom, but when it comes to zooming in even further, I feel that there's some sort of odd software optimization on the Magic 5 Pro. Specifically, while looking at the 100 times zoom, you can see that the Magic 5 Pro looks a lot more washed out when it comes to looking at, for example, the London Shard. This was very much also apparent when I was looking at seats within Wimbledon tennis, and you can see here yet again that it's very much more blurred out and a little bit washed out. Equally, I found that while zooming, the camera seemed to struggle to stay in focus. In other words, it was constantly trying to search around, while it's not a problem I had on the Magic 4 Pro. This is, of course, due to some sort of software optimization, so I hope that Honor can actually address this when it comes to future firmware iterations. Now, as for the selfie camera, I think both of them are pretty similar. However, in complete contrast, pun intended, in comparison to the rear camera, I feel that the Magic 4 Pro has actually got a bit more of that extra contrast in comparison to the Magic 5 Pro. Now, what about when it comes to low light photography? Well, that f-stop that I did mention before really does come into play, specifically with the Magic 5 Pro. You can see here with the ultra-wide shot that the Magic 5 Pro stands head and shoulders over the Magic 4 Pro. Both actually do well when it comes to using the regular one-time zoom, in other words the default camera, although I would still pick the Magic 5 Pro over the 4 Pro. It further becomes more apparent if you go into zoom levels. For example, the 10 times zoom, the Baby Yoda that I've got over here, was pretty much not being able to see. However, while switching to night mode, you can see here the results are completely flipped. While there is still better detail at 3.5 times zoom on the Magic 5 Pro, at 10 times zoom, the Magic 5 Pro seems to completely fail, while the Magic 4 Pro seems to get the right sort of details, and of course, you can see the Baby Pichu and of course the Baby Yoda. They're clearly in shot, while the Magic 5 Pro was just not being able to capture anything. So it's quite fascinating. Now, as for using night mode on the ultra-wide or indeed the 1 times regular lens, you can see over here yet again the Magic 5 Pro does a better job, and furthermore when it comes to the overall tones that it captured, it's far more accurate, where you can see the ultra-wide shot on the Magic 4 Pro just seems overly yellow for no apparent reason. Now, as for flash photography, the Magic 5 Pro yet again came out on top. Other than the overall detail that it was able to capture, I did notice that it would only take a single stage of flash, in other words while it was capturing the image. By contrast, the Magic 4 Pro would flash, take the image and flash again, if that makes sense. So therefore making it a little less blinding for the person that you're going to be capturing, or in this case, for example, slight little toys and trinkets that I've got. Equally, when it comes to the ultra-wide, yet again the Magic 5 Pro came out on top. Now, past this, I would like to point out that both smartphones have got a fantastic array of customization through the camera app. Indeed, you have got the likes of aperture mode, pro mode, alongside some certain other features which I'll touch upon later when it comes to video functionality. But the Magic 5 Pro has also got a very quick snapper. Indeed, over here it takes less time to process and therefore means that you can take a multitude of photos very quickly. Including when it comes to night mode, it took less time to process, therefore meaning I didn't have to hold the smartphone as long in comparison to the Magic 4 Pro. Now, another thing that I really appreciated on the Magic 5 Pro, which is not something that I actually anticipated, was the AI motion sensing. This is a new feature that the manufacturers integrated and is effectively enabled by pressing a little running man on the camera app. Now, while this is done, it means that the camera is constantly being in use, even when you're not capturing, because it's effectively trying to use AI to capture any given moment. Now, in my case, I was able to take some really cool shots. You'll be able to see over here that I was filming also at the same time, and you can see the photos that came out of it. These photos were something that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise attain, be it in terms of capturing a still image from my video, or of course trying to capture it while I was jumping, for example, on a timer. Indeed, the overall AI motion sensing certainly does a tremendous job, and it is worth considering that if you're going to be holding the phone while using AI motion sensing, you can still use the regular shutter to take photos. AI motion sensing is effectively a means of complementing your photography rather than trying to replace it. It's a great addition. However, you will notice that at certain times it really didn't capture some of the moments that I had, and that's because the AI seemingly has been tuned to effectively capture certain moments. So for example, jumping or moving targets, or for example, let's say some animals, cats and dogs to be more specific. So therefore, when I was doing a little bit of taekwondo practice, and yes, my form was absolutely terrible, it didn't capture one of the key moments, for example, when I was turning or kicking. So therefore, it has its applications, but it's certainly a worthwhile inclusion and one that I absolutely love that Honor has implemented. Now, speaking about recording, let's talk about the video capabilities of both these smartphones. And here, both can record at 4K at up to 60 FPS or 1080p at up to 60 FPS. My tests were done at 4K 60 in case you're wondering. They both use EIS technology. Now, comparing the two, I found that the overall stabilization on the Magic 5 Pro was improved, and therefore meant that my image seemed a little bit less juddery. However, if you compare it to some of the modern flagships out there, the Magic 5 Pro still does not compete in this department. Some of the other alternatives will feel a lot smoother in comparison to what you can experience on the Magic 5 Pro. As for the Magic 4 Pro, it did suffer quite a bit from that sort of jittery effect, but still did a pretty good job. Specifically, when it came to the audio reproduction, I felt that the audio on the Magic 4 Pro seemed a little bit better in comparison to the Magic 5 Pro that sounded a little bit more tinny. Now, as for the selfie camera, both of them have got a 12 megapixel f2.4 ultra wide and have also got pretty much the same sort of performance, at least from my own tests, which were recorded at 4K 30 FPS. Although it's worth noting that if you do want to record at up to 60 FPS, 1080p is capable on the Magic 5 Pro, while on the Magic 4 Pro it's capped at 1080p 30 FPS, which is quite a shame. Now, to capture all that data very rapidly, you're probably going to want a pretty powerful chipset. And here, thankfully, Honor has integrated an octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on the Magic 4 Pro with an Adreno 730 GPU, while the Magic 5 Pro has got an octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with Adreno 740. Now, in terms of the phones that were tested, my phone, the Honor Magic 4 Pro, has got 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, while the Honor Magic 5 Pro has got 12GB of RAM and 512GB of storage. Now, aside from that, both of them were operating on the latest Magic OS 7.1 and therefore Android 13. Now here you can see the benchmarks, and it's quite clear to see that the Honor Magic 5 Pro one-ups its sibling. Indeed, both in terms of Geekbench 6 or indeed AI benchmark, or even when it comes to the GFX bench, the overall performance of the Magic 5 Pro was superior. So therefore, if you're going to be gaming a lot, or indeed you want to have that increased amount of headroom, specifically when it comes to the RAM available, then the Honor Magic 5 Pro will one-up its sibling. On the subject of gaming, this perfectly brings me on to today's sponsor, AOC. The manufacturer produces numerous high-end panels that are perfectly suited for every gamer's needs. The AOC AG275QZ, for example, is an excellent 27-inch QHD 270Hz IPS monitor. I had its input lag tested at just 2.4 milliseconds, with a response time of a mere 2.77 milliseconds in its highest overdrive setting. To find out more, head over to my detailed review, which can be found down in the description below. Now, both these smartphones have got an absolutely excellent performance, although I do think it will be pretty overkill for a lot of individuals, although the battery life will be of greater importance. Here, from my controlled benchmark, the Honor Magic 5 Pro netted 22 hours and 39 minutes, as opposed to the 19 hours achieved on the Magic 4 Pro. Now indeed over here, this is in part due to the fact of bigger battery capacity on the newer model. 5100 milliamp up from 4600 milliamp. And therefore will certainly be appreciated if you're a heavy user and of course going to be using your phone out and about. However, when it comes to replenishing its battery packs, the Magic 4 Pro takes the cake. 100 watt wired, 100 watt wireless, which is absolutely insane, and reverse 5 watt wireless. As opposed to the Magic 5 Pro, which is capped at 66 watt wired, 50 watt wireless, and also still supports the reverse 5 watt wireless charging. Now, past all of this, I would like to share my own experiences while using these smartphones, and by that I mean when it comes to the overall software implementation. Both of them, as a reminder, we're using Android 13 and also Magic OS 7.1. They actually have very similar build numbers, at least at the time of filming. Here I just felt that the overall bloatware that was added and also the heavy skin on top of Android is not really appreciated, at least in not this modern era. I do get that you have got quite a lot of customization in comparison to stock Android due to Magic OS 7.1 implementing that, but still I do feel that some consumers like myself would have preferred a bit more of like, let's say, the Google Pixel approach, or for example more modern Samsung smartphones which operate on a much more lighter Android skin. So therefore means that for those people transitioning from other smartphones, you might be left a little bit surprised as to 1, the degree of customization, or 2, the amount of kind of sluggishness that you might feel with the software. Furthermore, another annoyance is that while consuming short form content, such as on the likes of YouTube Shorts, you'll find that the videos are actually stuttering. And of course, this is not how it's supposed to be, because the content creator, like myself, doesn't intend you to see stuttery videos. Unfortunately, this is the case on the Magic 5 Pro as well. And it seems to be somewhat linked with the dynamic refresh rate if you were to enable that option through the display settings. If, however, you go on a fixed refresh rate, it seems to be that the effect is lessened, but is still very much present, at least on the Magic 5 Pro, while on the Magic 4 Pro does not seem to be present. And as a result, I actually use my phone on a fixed refresh rate at all times. This further just emphasizes the point that the software optimization isn't quite there and doesn't quite compete with some of the rival alternatives out there on the market. Speaking of its competitors, both of these smartphones opt for 3D Face Unlock, which is absolutely spectacular, therefore providing great biometric security and also access to certain apps which would otherwise require you to input a fingerprint. Speaking of which, the Honor Magic 4 Pro's ultrasonic sensor seemed to be a little bit snappier in comparison to the optical sensor found on the Magic 5 Pro. Nonetheless, both are very fast when it comes to accessing your smartphone. As for the other features that you should be aware of, you have got dual band Wi-Fi 802.11 up to Wi-Fi 6 support, Bluetooth, aptX HD, LE and LDAC codec support, which is certainly appreciated for audiophiles alike, NFC and an infrared port as well. Aside from this, when it comes to the speakers, they're very loud and clear and provide a good sort of audio quality. Their stereo configuration therefore makes it quite pleasurable when you're consuming content. On that note, when it comes to taking calls, it's very easy to hear your recipient, and the microphone quality is very impressive too. You've also got an AI calling feature if you want to enable it, therefore giving you a bit more privacy in those a little bit quieter environments. So with all that in mind, which smartphone would I pick? Well, quite frankly, the Honor Magic 5 Pro one-ups its sibling and improves it in many departments, and furthermore goes toe-to-toe with some of the competitors out there. As a result, it gets my performance awards. However, if I had to spend my own hard-earned cash, I would side towards the Honor Magic 4 Pro. Reason behind it is that it's £300 cheaper than the new successor, and also provides a likened performance, and this phone would easily get my Best Buy award. Now I'd be curious to know down in the comment section below as to which smartphone you would pick and what you make in terms of the comparison of these phones in comparison to some of the rival alternatives. Now if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Totally Dubbed and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.